I'm Renee Fong. Making the headlines today, PM expresses confidence of serving full term. HR Ministry to attract Malaysians working abroad to return home. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim is confident that the unity government which he helms will get to serve its full term. While addressing over 100 diplomatic officers in Wisma Putra, he appeared unperturbed by past President Tan Sri Abdul Hadi Awang's claims of toppling the current government.
The duty of this government, this administration, whatever is being said by the past president, regardless, I'm confident that this coalition will survive until the end of its term. More than just a political rhetoric, I'm giving a strong message to Malaysia that we have to chart a different course. We must do this and effect this change, which is extremely necessary to save this country from the mess that we have been in.
Tan Sri Abdul Hadi reportedly said that no parties would be able to stop Perikatan Nasional's PN plans to topple the unity of government, saying that politics is dynamic and such practice is considered normal in a democratic country. At the session, the Prime Minister also called on the heads of diplomatic missions to do better for the country, and it was vital for Malaysian officers and diplomats overseas to set an example of what it meant to be a good, competent leader. Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Anwar has strongly suggested ASEAN to think of more effective measures to resolve the crisis in Myanmar that has been affecting other countries in this region, including Malaysia. Datuk Seri Anwar said he had also spoke with his ASEAN counterparts regarding the issue. The crisis in Myanmar has led to the influx of refugees from the country, with Malaysia currently hosting approximately 200,000 Rohingya refugees.
And in every of the session, whether we be Prime Minister of Thailand or President of the Philippines or Prime Minister of Singapore and President Jokowi of Indonesia, I make it a point to strongly suggest that ASEAN must not only continue to engage, yes, but then think of some other effective means to resolve this, because otherwise we are subjected to these gross atrocities, not only at home, but affecting us as a nation.
He noted that the old narrative of constructive engagement is not quite relevant anymore, as ASEAN has been doing the same thing for the last 4 decades, and the 10-member bloc cannot choose to ignore the issue due to the non-interference policy. While protecting Malaysia's interests, Datuk Seri Anwar stressed that Malaysia has to take a position on this issue and uphold its values. The Human Resources Ministry is drafting measures to tackle the brain drain phenomenon, which at 5.5% of its population is much higher than the global average of 3.3%. Its Minister V. Siva Kumar, a total of 1.86 million Malaysians live abroad, with the main destinations for the Malaysian diaspora are Singapore, Bangladesh, Australia, United Kingdom, the United States and Brunei. Siva Kumar said it was a long-term task to attract Malaysians back to the country.
There's two things kalau kita lihat yang saya nampak sebagai satu masalah besar lah. Satu, orang yang sudah pun meninggalkan negara ini, yang masih bekerja di negara lain, how are you going to pull them back? Apakah cara terbaik dengan insentif-insentif tertentu yang lebih menarik untuk tarik mereka datang? Dan pada masa yang sama untuk memastikan bahawa pekerja-pekerja kita, mereka tidak ada faktor yang menarik di luar dan mungkin ada faktor penolak dalam yang menyebabkan mereka keluar. tanggungjawab tu berat walaupun it's ongoing. They are doing all the best, whatever they can do.
On a separate matter, the minister said technical and vocational education and training TVET need to be streamlined in an effort to empower the sector. Such move is able to reduce skills gap, synchronize education with industry needs and create more job opportunities. He was met after chairing a Talent Corporation Malaysia Berhad Talent Corp dialogue session with 20 industry players in Kuala Lumpur. The Local Government Development Ministry KPKT through Solid Waste and Public Cleansing Management Corporation SW Corp aims to close down 192 more illegal landfills by the end of next month. Its Minister Nga Ko Ming said the closure will involve several locations that have been identified in 7 states, namely Johor, Kedah, Melaka, Negeri Sembilan, Pahang, Perlis and the Federal Territories of Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya. The closure will be implemented under the Solid Waste and Public Cleansing Management Act 2007, Act 672.
Kita berazam akan bersihkan semua 192 hotspot. Cuma masalahnya, selepas XW Corp di BKL dan KPKT bertunggus lumus bersusah payah bersihkan, masalahnya dia datang kembali berulang lagi. So oleh kerana itu kita akan mengambil langkah seperti 8 langkah yang saya sebut tadi untuk mencegah. Kerana saya sentiasa percaya prevention is always better than cure. Kita nak mencegah kejadian daripada berulang berlaku lagi. Tetapi itu perlu 2 perkara. Kesedaran sivik yang tinggi, kerjasama dan semangat patriotik cintakan negara.
Nga said the ministry would continue to carry out regular monitoring and enforcement at illegal landfills, adding that 35 mobile closed-circuit television CCTV cameras have been installed at 22 locations. The Veterinary Services Department will continue to monitor the entry of beef consignments from Brazil following reports of mad cow disease cases detected in the country. Agriculture and Food Security Minister Datuk Sri Muhammad Sabu said not all places in Brazil are experiencing the outbreak, but the Veterinary Department will keep monitoring the import process.
Malaysia akan terus import daging dari Brazil selepas dapat kita punya sentuhlah sama Jakim, yang kedua Makis, yang ketiga Berita. Itu kalau kelulusan itu ada, maka kita tak ada masalah. Melihat saya proses tadi, Berita akan saya pantau sampai mereka akan cek semuanya sekali. Ini kita di antara negara yang tinggi menilai bahan-bahan import yang masuk itu.
He was commenting on a recent media report quoting the Brazilian Ministry of Agriculture as saying a confirmed case of mad cow disease in Brazil discovered last month is atypical or not representative of the norm. Following that, the international media last Saturday reported that Thailand, Iran and Jordan have temporarily suspended the import of beef from Brazil. Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad is offering flood victims a moratorium of up to 6 months, subject to the terms and conditions set by the bank. The moratorium applies to those who have housing loans, personal loans and vehicle hire purchase loans, while affected micro, small and medium-sized MSMEs businesses can also apply for the moratorium offered. The bank said under this facility, eligible e-micro enterprises can apply for financing of up to 150,000 ringgit, while the financing size for SMEs is 700,000 ringgit with a tenure of 7 years, including a moratorium of 6 months. The statement added that Bank Islam also offers to waive fees and charges for replacing debit iCards and checkbooks that are damaged in the floods, plus offer disaster relief funds DRF to ease the financial burden of clients and help them recover and return to their normal businesses. Applications for the DRF can be made at the nearest Bank Islam branch for operations that resume within 3 months of the disaster. Israeli troops killed 6 in Jenin raid. That's coming up in the foreign front. Qatar's Emir named his top diplomat as Prime Minister Tuesday and brought in a new interior minister in what observers called the completion of a changing of the guard in the wealthy Gulf state. The ruler's office announced that Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani had accepted the resignation of Prime Minister and Interior Minister Sheikh Khalid bin Khalifa bin Abdul Aziz Al Thani. Foreign Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani was named as the new head of government and was sworn in within hours of the change. Sheikh Khalifa bin Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, who headed the government security committee for last year's World Cup, became Interior Minister. At 42, the new Prime Minister and economist is the same age as the Emir, and the new Interior Minister is also of the same generation. The current Emir has not introduced any major changes to the foreign policy of the resolutely pro-US Gulf state. But Qatar's growing wealth built on its massive natural gas reserves has brought huge changes to the tiny state and its international profile. Israeli troops yesterday killed 6 Palestinians in Jenin, the latest deadly raid in a surge of violence in the occupied West Bank. The Palestinian Health Ministry said 6 men had been killed, one aged 49 and the rest in their 20s, in clashes that the army said included soldiers launching shoulder-fired rockets amid ferocious gunfire. Nabil Abu Rudaini, spokesman for the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, called the use of rockets in a Jenin refugee camp the scene of frequent clashes in the northern West Bank, an act of all-out war. Witnesses said Israeli troops entered the camp and surrounded a house as a group of militants fought back, with the army reporting explosive devices and blocks were hurled at their soldiers. And AFP photographers saw thick plumes of smoke rising from the building. At least 26 Palestinians were wounded during Tuesday's raid. The Palestinian Health Ministry said 3 of them with serious injuries. The army said 2 soldiers were lightly wounded. It is the most recent in a string of fatal military operations in the Palestinian territory, which Israel has occupied since the Six-Day War of 1967. 2 people were killed and several others injured in a train accident at city of Qalyub, north of Cairo. Egypt's health ministry listed 16 injured, including 6 already treated and released. Egypt's National Rail Authority said the accident occurred when a passenger train entering Qalyub station went through a stop signal that led to the derailment of the locomotive and the first carriage. Pictures from the scene showed first responders converging on rail cars, which still appeared to be right side up behind a high wall in a built-up area. Police formed a perimeter to hold back crowds who perched on other walls nearby. A crane was later brought in to lift the derailed car, which appeared to be partially crumpled. Egyptian rail accidents have mostly been blamed on poor infrastructure and maintenance. In March 2021, at least 20 people died and nearly 200 were injured in a train crash in southern Egypt. 2 U.S. citizens kidnapped by suspected Mexican drug traffickers were found dead on Tuesday, while 2 others survived, in what officials said appeared to be a tragic case of mistaken identity. Washington vowed to do everything in its power to ensure justice for the victims who crossed the border into the crime-plagued city of Matamoros in Tamaulipas state on last Friday for medical reasons. According to Tamaulipas Attorney General, initial indications were that the abduction was the result of a mix-up rather than a targeted attack. The 2 survivors were returned to the United States via a land border crossing between Matamoros and Brownsville, Texas. U.S. media named them as Latavia Washington McGee and Eric James Williams. One suffered a gunshot wound to the leg and the other was unharmed. It was not immediately clear whether the 2 deaths occurred occurred before or during the rescue operation, but preliminary investigations suggested all 4 were alive until at least Monday. The bodies of the 2 citizens who lost their lives were expected to be repatriated within hours once forensic studies were completed in Mexico. Georgian police used tear gas and water cannon against protesters as thousands of demonstrators took to the streets in the capital, Tbilisi, to oppose a controversial foreign agents bill. The demonstration took place after Georgian lawmakers earlier Tuesday gave their initial backing to draft law, which is reminiscent of Russia's legislation used to crack down on dissent. At one point, a protester opposed to the law which would impose registration requirements on media and NGOs with foreign ties threw a Molotov cocktail at a cordon of riot police. Georgian President Salome Zurabichvili expressed support for the demonstrators and vowed to veto the legislation. The U.S. Embassy in Georgia called the legislation Kremlin-inspired and said it was incompatible with the country's desire to join the European Union. In Russia, the foreign agent label has been used extensively by the authorities against political opponents, journalists, and human rights activists accused of conducting foreign-funded political activities. Canada is extending its mission to train Ukrainian combat engineers to October and deploying medical trainers too. Its Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made the announcement during a joint news conference with visiting European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Speaking at a military base in Kingston, Ontario, Trudeau also pledged $3 million Canadian for demining efforts in Ukraine and vowed with the EU to deliver generators to Ukraine, which has suffered repeated attacks on its power grid since the Russian invasion began a year ago.
Today, I can announce that we are extending our engineering training as part of Operation Unifier until at least the fall, and deploying CAF medical trainers to help Ukrainian forces with combat medical skills. We're also investing $3 million for demining in Ukraine and working with the EU to deliver energy equipment to Ukraine for their power grid.
For her part, von der Leyen welcomed Ottawa's commitment while recalling that the EU has spent more than 12 billion euros on military equipment for Ukraine and intends to complete training as many as 30,000 Ukrainian troops by the end of the year. The two leaders also said Ottawa and Brussels agreed to develop cross-Atlantic trade in green hydrogen to help the EU meet its energy needs. These have been strained by the fallout from the war due to Western sanctions imposed against Russia. A bipartisan group of U.S. senators on Tuesday unveiled a bill authorizing the Commerce Secretary to rein in technology products viewed as threats to national security, with a particular focus on Chinese-owned TikTok, the popular ByteDance-owned app used by more than 100 million Americans.
I'd like to call this hearing.
The bill gives the Commerce Department the ability to impose restrictions up to and including banning TikTok and other technologies that pose national security risks, said Democratic Senator Mark Warner, who chairs the Intelligence Committee. He said it would also apply to foreign technologies from Russia, North Korea, Iran, Venezuela, and Cuba. The group, led by Warner and Republican Senator John Thune, includes several Democrats, including Tammy Baldwin, Joe Manchin, and Martin Heinrich. Meanwhile, TikTok said in a statement that any U.S. ban on TikTok is a ban on the export of American culture and values to the billion-plus people who use its service worldwide. Still to come in sports, Chelsea edge out Dortmund to reach UCL quarter-final. Stay with us. The Youth and Sports Ministry, KBS, is offering allocations through matching grants to all state youth and sports committee chairmen to upgrade selected football pitches with Zeon Zoysia grass. Its Minister Hannah Yeoh said the offer was made during the first ministry meeting with state excos in January, and now they were waiting for feedback, which is expected to be presented in the upcoming second meeting. She said each state has to choose one stadium for the upgrading and to conduct initial maintenance before they approve the allocation.
Kita nak bagi offer kepada negeri kalau mereka boleh pilih satu stadium bola sepak yang mereka nak upgrade untuk rumput Zeon Zoysia seperti ini, naik taraf padang yang itu dibuat oleh negeri. Kerajaan Persekutuan KBS boleh bagi kos untuk menanam rumput, tetapi penyelenggaraan dan maintenance setiap bulan itu balik kepada negeri.
The minister said this after visited the Malayan Tigresses' last training session at the Football Association of Malaysia FAM football field. On other development, Yeoh said her ministry would continue supporting the women's grassroots football in terms of infrastructure and allocation for the next 5 years. A first-half goal from Raheem Sterling and a controversial penalty by Kai Havertz overturned a first-leg deficit and propelled Chelsea into the Champions League quarter-finals with a 2-1 aggregate win over Borussia Dortmund. It was Dortmund's first defeat following wins in their previous 10 matches and a boost for Chelsea, who have struggled for form under Graham Potter since the turn of the year. Just as they had in Germany 3 weeks ago when Dortmund won 1-0, 2021 champions Chelsea squandered chance after chance in the first half with Germany's Havertz hitting the post. But in the 43rd minute, Ben Chilwell crossed into the box and found England teammate Raheem Sterling. Sterling air-kicked his first effort, then sidestepped Marco Reus and sent his second high into the net to put the teams level on aggregate. Early in the second half, Chilwell cross smacked into the outstretched hand of defender Marius Wolf, and Dutch referee Danny McKelly gave the penalty after being called to the VAR screen. Havertz hit the keeper's left-hand post and play resumed for a few seconds until VAR alerted McKelly that Dortmund players had encroached into the area. Havertz retook the kick and sent the ball the same way, but this time it squeezed inside the post for a 53rd minute strike. Over in Lisbon, clinical Benfica thrashed a shell-shocked Club Brugge 5-1 to knock them out of the Champions League and reach the quarter-final 7-1 on aggregate at the Estadio da Luz. Led by a tireless João Mario, who netted a late penalty, and the informed Ramos, Benfica showed exactly why they're seen in Portugal as the country's best side since Jose Mourinho Porto were crowned European champions 19 years ago. Benfica took the lead in the 38th minute through Rafa Silva, who dribbled past two defenders and fired a left-foot strike into the net after a counter-attack started by Gonzalo Ramos, who sped up the left channel before crossing to the far post. Ramos then scored either side of the break before João Mario extended the lead with a penalty in the 71st minute. Substitute David Neres grabbed the 5th-6th minutes later before Bjorn Meyer got a consolation for Bruges in the 87th. UEFA will refund Liverpool fans who attended last year's Champions League final in Paris after an independent report said they were responsible for the chaos outside the stadium. The final was delayed by 36 minutes after thousands of Liverpool supporters were unable to get into Stade de France for the match on 28th May, which Real Madrid won 1-0. French police were filmed using tear gas on fans, including women and children. Although UEFA initially blamed the Merseyside club's fans for the mayhem, the governing body later apologized following the release of an independent review. UEFA General Secretary Theodore Theodoridis said in a statement, UEFA have taken into account a huge number of views expressed both publicly and privately, and it believed to has devised a scheme that is comprehensive expensive and fair. UEFA said refunds would be available to all fans with tickets for gates A, B, C, X, Y and Z, which was there the most difficult circumstances were reported. Liverpool fans had 19,618 tickets allocated for the final. UEFA also said Real Madrid fans and neutral supporters who meet the refund criteria will be processed via their customer service. EF Education Easy post Magnus Cort Nielsen moved to the top of the overall standings of Paris-Nice on Tuesday, despite Jumbo-Visma winning the team time trial on stage 3 in central France. Dane Cort Nielsen 30 holds a 1 second advantage over Jumbo's Belgian Nathan van Hooydonk in second place and 3 seconds over Jaco Alula's Australian Michael Matthews in third. Tour de France champion and Cort Nielsen's compatriot Jonas Vingegaard is in 5th spot with UAE Team Emirates two-time Grand Boschel winner Tadej Pogacar in 10th. The day marked a change in the team time trial format, with the clock stopping as the first rider crossed the line rather than the 4th or 5th. After a 32.2-kilometre team trial around the small village of Dampierre and Burley to the south of Orleans, Jumbo pipped Cort Nielsen's outfit by 1 second in a race considered as a mini Tour de France. Matthews, Jaco Alula were third, 4 seconds behind in cloudy conditions, accompanying the riders on the race to the sun, which ends on Sunday on the Côte d'Azur in Nice. Today's 4th stage is a 165-kilometre ride south from Saint-Armand-Montrond to La Loge-des-Gardes, passing through Vichy, the French state capital, between 1940 to 1944.
Kejohanan Liga Hoki TNB 2023 memburu piala berprestij di Arena Hoki Negara. Saksikan juga secara pensterima langsung di RTM Klik Kejohanan Liga Hoki TNB 2023 eksklusif hanya di RTM.
And that ends today's updates at noon. Wrapping up with a reminder of our top story, PM expresses confidence of serving full term. Tune to News at 10 coming up at 10 p.m. on saluran Berita RTM. And before we leave, we would like to wish all women of the world Happy International Women's Day 2023. And to quote the great fashion designer Coco Chanel, a girl should be two things, who and what she wants. I'm Renee Fong. Stay tuned to saluran Berita RTM and Salam Malaysia Madani.